Multifamily is a team sport. We're not necessarily good at everything that goes into being a syndicator. I'm a PhD clinical psychologist, so I'm pretty smart, but not so much as in the numbers and putting them in spreadsheets and learning these types of things that my engineer partner was. My husband, he's great at the asset management side, and I'm great at the customer relations side. So you need more than one person in multifamily to help you to grow. And so that's where getting into a group of some sort is very helpful for anybody wanting to syndicate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey to Multifamily Millions. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Zana Investments, Tim Little. And on today's show, we have with us Rebecca Moore. Rebecca is the founder of Starboard Equity. She has been a real estate investor since 2014 and has built relationships with brokers and investors to help her win and fund deals in Texas while living in California, all while managing a full-time psychology practice. She has been a general partner on 8 properties totaling over 900 units and is a limited partner on over 2,900 units. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and it's great to have you. So I gave everyone a high-level overview of your background, but on this show, we really like to get into the details of how you got started on your journey. So please take us back to the beginning and tell us how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Again, living in San Diego, and just as a fast forward, we've moved to Dallas 2 years ago. But back in San Diego, I was working at the Naval Hospital as a psychologist and married to a wonderful sailor. And as he was coming up on his retirement from the Navy, we started to think about what are we going to do with our single family homes. My husband Warren had bought several single family homes as in places where he was stationed. So we had a few in Virginia and one down in Corpus Christi. And we were just thinking, okay, what do we do? And considering the fact that we weren't necessarily ready to settle down ourselves, we thought, okay, we're going to buy a sixplex, an eightplex or something, sell all the singles and go for one building under one roof, because that made more sense to us rather than paying the different property managers that we had at each house. Because, of course, while he was on deployment or something like that, he couldn't take care of them before we got married. And then afterwards, still, it just made sense to have somebody watching the properties. So that is essentially the impetus for us to begin to look into multifamily. So what we did is we went to a real estate expo where there were many people that were talking not only about single family homes, but also about buying apartments. And it was there that we realized that people were beginning to syndicate larger multifamily properties. So syndication, meaning that basically all sorts of people put their money together and create the down payment for a larger building. And that there are folks like us now that do that. So that was really amazing to find out that was something that we could enter into. We got ourselves a mentor and began to learn about syndications. So now my husband at the time, he was what's called the Commodore of many ships. He was commanding a ship squadron. So that meant you can't leave. And Tim, I know that you understand that. It's not like you're going to go to your admiral and say, hey, I'm going to go over to Texas for the weekend. I'm just going to leave everything under somebody else's control. No, that doesn't happen. So Warren couldn't leave. So it ended up that I would go to Texas where our mentor was and to learn multifamily and to learn the Texas market. And because this was a group of people learning from this person, we all became friends. And that meant that we would invest in each other's properties or they would invest into mine. We would learn together what a C class property was. We would go on bus tours and be able to see this is the salt of the earth people who are helping America grow. These are the construction folks, they are the support chefs. They are not the nurse, but the nurse's assistant, not the teacher, but the teacher's assistant, maybe who live in these properties. And here's how we can make it a more beautiful property for them, as well as the appreciation on the building, make profits. So I would fly out from San Diego to Dallas almost every other month in order to learn all about syndication and all about the Texas market. So that's the start, Tim. I'll let you see if you need to ask any questions from there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of familiarity in what you were talking about. I've been Army one way or another my whole life. So a lot of the things that you're saying ring true with so many people that I've talked to. They're based somewhere and then they get PCS, which is the official military move. And so they just rent out that house and then they move somewhere else 3 years later. And so then they just rent out that house. And 15, 20 years later, they realize, oh, I have 4 or 5 single family houses. And it's at a certain point, it becomes a burden more than something that's helpful. Sure, they may have a
Mhm.
little cash flow here and there, but then you throw in the property manager taking their 10% right off the top. And things just happen over time when you have these properties. And so, like you, a lot of them are just looking for a way to not necessarily exit out of real estate, but consolidate what they have. And you're right. I think most people do go towards that. Oh, we'll do a 1031, sell them all at one time and put it into a sixplex or an eightplex. And maybe that's even the more advanced people. The rest of them probably just sell them off one by one. But then you said that you discovered syndication. And that's, I think, how I usually equate it because it's this thing that people don't know is a thing until kind of the curtain is pulled back. And you're like, oh, I had no idea. And so that really opens up your options when it comes to how much you could scale. And I guess I don't know if you had that epiphany. Is that where it came for you once you saw what syndication was, and you were, and is that when you like turned away from the sixplex, eightplex to deciding to go into these larger apartments? And what did you do with all those single family homes? I don't think we heard that.
Okay, yeah. Let's start with the syndication idea. Here, instead of working with toilets, termites, and tenants, we could instead get a larger building for which a property manager would take care of all those things. And my husband and I wouldn't have to worry about those things. We just invest in it and wait for the money to come, which was really a super idea because, again, as you said, we had been giving away a part of our rent to our property managers, having to deal with the destruction that some of the tenants left. One house, the inside of the garage was basically caving in, I should say the ceiling, because they'd allowed leaks to occur, didn't tell us anything. And so the ceiling of the garage was about to fall out. So you just wonder how other people are going to take care of your property. And so we decided to get out of that market. We did sell 2 of the 3 houses that we had, and the 1 house remains in Virginia, and that's because the renter has been there ever since he started renting it back in the '90s. So that house is paid off from that person. So we're gonna keep that one.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I've found too, like what some of these people do is they take those single family homes that they have, and like you, they decide they're tired of the headaches and they just want to be passive investor. And
Mhm.
so they liquidate those single family homes that they have and they take those couple $100,000 and they could probably put those in 2 or 3 syndications. That way they're diversifying. They're getting passive income where they don't have to worry on the daily about what the
Mhm.
tenants are doing. And they're getting these distributions and then hopefully a big paycheck at the end of the day. Another thing that I want to talk to you about was the mentor. And I'll give you a second and just talk to me about the importance of a mentor.
Yes, I don't even have to think about it. That mentor is going to help you from making any mistakes. Why bother making mistakes when you can pay someone to help you see clearly all that's ahead of you? So, therefore, somebody who is showing you how to do it correctly, such as when I say do it, the underwriting, somebody who is showing you this is the kind of building that makes sense. Otherwise, a C class building that has one, two, and three bedrooms, you don't want to have foundational problems or huge plumbing problems in the very beginning. You you want to have a home run if you're a syndicator. A person who has seen it and done it and will help you from making mistakes. Also, if you have a group membership mentor, so not just, let's say, a private person, but within that group, you learn from the group, and those are where you might find new partners to work with. And that was the case for myself. And within that group, you learn to asset manage as well. So that group becomes your new group of friends in most cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you hit on a couple of key points there. Like one is that it can shorten your learning curve, right? People could probably get all this information if they wanted to find it on their own. But how long would it take them to do that? How many books would they have to read?
Mhm.
Podcasts would they have to listen to? Or YouTube videos to watch? And so you're really shortening the learning curve and being much more efficient in how you learn about this. And not only that, people have to take into account the value of their own time. And I think
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people don't do. They're like, "Oh, I can find that. I'll just look for it myself." Because sometimes this is a big investment, whether it's 10, $20,000, whatever it might be. But they also have to think about one, the value of their time, and two, the cost of some of those mistakes if they make them. And if that mentorship can stop you from making a $10,000 or $20,000 mistake, then it's already made up its money right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's also true that multifamily is a team sport. We're not necessarily good at everything that goes into being a syndicator. So, for example, I was lucky enough that my first partner was an engineer. I'm a PhD clinical psychologist. So I'm pretty smart, but not so much as in the numbers and putting them in spreadsheets and learning these types of things that my engineer partner was. So that right there, that team. Then as we progress, understanding, am I a great fundraiser? Okay, I'm okay at it. It's not my favorite. Asset managing. I've got my secret weapon, my husband, who was a SWO, a surface warfare officer that was in ships. And so he knows the air conditioning, the electrical, he knows all sorts of safety hazards that we can avoid. He's great at the asset management side. And I'm great at the customer relations side. So you need more than one person in multifamily to help you to grow. And so that's where getting into a group of some sort is very helpful for anybody wanting to syndicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like you said, it's not just about what you're learning, but also that community that you're surrounding yourself with,
Mhm.
because they in and of themselves are a resource too, right? You have someone you could pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I got a question on this. Is this the right thing to do?" Whereas if you're trying to do this by yourself, it's really hard because you don't have someone
Mhm.
to turn to and you have to fall on your face a few times. But when you have those resources around you, again, it could save you a lot of time, pain, and probably money in the long run.
Absolutely. Not only that, I'll jump in and add that when you are purchasing a multi-unit property, is that most of us like getting a non-recourse agency loan. So that means a Fannie or a Freddie loan. And you cannot necessarily walk in and get a Fannie Freddie unless you're partnered with somebody who has already gotten a Fannie Freddie. So it's called an experienced partner. So you'll either have to pay that person a small percentage in order to sign on the loan with you, or if they're your partner, again, that's where having a team makes the difference.
Yeah, and the same is true for HUD loans, which a lot of syndicators don't like because it's a long, painful process. But sometimes they can have very good terms. And the first thing they look for when deciding to approve on a HUD loan is, have you done a HUD loan before? Honestly, it sounds like that catch 22, but that's where other people's experience comes in and where partnering can make the difference on whether a deal works or it doesn't.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and you talked about, and I probably know who you've worked with in the past, but I did my first multifamily convention conference, I guess you could say, in Texas too. And we did one of those bus tours. And for me, it was one of those I had split feelings on it. It was this weird thing of where I'm walking around someone's apartment complex and you feel like everyone's like looking at you like, who are these people getting off a bus walking around my apartment complex? But at the same time, I think it's important to understand what you talked about, which is any property that I'm buying, my goal is to make it better. So if, and a lot of times it's C class, maybe low B class, and they don't have the amenities that a lot of the newer apartments do, we'll go in there and there's some like one in Dallas, for example, that we have. It didn't have a playground at all. And there wasn't a ton of room, but we were able to find a place to at least put a playground because before that, the kids had nothing to play with. And I would like to think that those are the kind of things that are really appreciated. We could always throw paint on it, say that people have pride in it because it looks better. But when it gets down to something that's more quality of life to where their children are going to enjoy living there more, I think that makes a big difference.
Yes, I agree. Playgrounds are very important when you have a demographic with lots of kids. And if you can find the room, it's giving to the parent and the kids as well. It's an amenity that helps for tenant retention because it's possible that those parents will be looking for another apartment that has potentially either a swimming pool or the playground for kids because the kids need something to do. So retaining those tenants that are already there with kids is essential.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a really good point. It's not like we have a checklist of things that we necessarily do on every property going in there that we're going to add. Oh, we got to add a playground. Oh, we got to add a dog park. Some of those things are pretty common, but it's really going to come down to the demographic at that apartment complex and what makes sense. Like if you're in a place that's all single professionals, why would you have a playground? That wouldn't make sense. Or a place where nobody owns dogs. Again, why would
Mhm.
you have a dog park? So I think for passive investors, they should challenge their sponsors, syndicators, whatever you want to call them, and say, okay, why are you choosing to put this amenity in? What evidence do you have that says this is something they're looking for?
They certainly could. It's wise for a person looking into a passive deal to really understand the business plan that sponsor plans to implement and if it makes sense to them. Because if it
Yep.
doesn't, then you can question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I'm curious, when you did start into syndication, did you do so with a plan to leave your job?
Yes and no is, of course, the answer. As a psychologist, I love who I work with. Now, let's say working in hospitals, I don't want a job. I don't want to have a boss, is what it
Sure.
was. And after my first syndication, I transitioned into private practice for myself and I could set those hours, but I was still working about 40 hours a week. And then when I got my second syndication, I was able to scale back to part time. And then by the third syndication that I had, I was able to shut my practice down. Now, COVID helped with that a lot because we all had to go online. And so now, because I love the people that I work with, I still see just a handful because I get gratification from the art of helping people and being able to listen to how their mind works and show them and make them more aware. So for me, It's no longer the paycheck, it's just the gratification of practicing the art of psychology.
Yeah, and I think that's a great reminder for people, right? A lot of folks out there are saying how you can quit your job in 2 years or whatever, this and that. There's some people that have no desire to quit their jobs. A lot of people
Mhm.
actually enjoy what they're doing. So for those people, there's nothing wrong with whether it's passively investing or actively investing. If they could find the time to do it, I think what they're looking for is more the time freedom thing. And like
Yes.
you said, maybe not having a boss, because that's always nice too.
It is because when I wanna go, let's say, like, I just came back from seeing my family and the terms were up to me. I didn't have to ask anybody, "Hey, boss, can I go?" Forget it. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of being able to have the passive income that syndications bring.
Yeah, absolutely. So, are you investing exclusively in the DFW area? And what is your criteria in what I would consider a pretty competitive market?
Yes. So, yes, we do, as far as myself, Starboard Equity, we look in Dallas and Houston. And that is exclusive because those are the places that I know best. And after all these years, I'm studying to find out another area is not necessary in my mind. I like where we are. I like the Dallas and Houston market. So our criteria is anywhere from an A minus to a C class value add. And so I know that's a broad spectrum. We are moving a little bit more towards the B and the A's because the C class, which is typically a 1970s and older, they're old. They have a lot more expenses that have to be worked on and something that you have to keep in your business plan, which is perfectly fine. But am moving toward less expenses and just doing some really beautiful upgrades.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And what I like tend to find is that people start off in the very much C class. And then as they progress, they start to move up to the C plus, B minus, B. And then maybe eventually they go into the A's, but there's really not much of a value add component once you get into A class because it's already nice. But yeah, you're right. When you're in that C class, you just have a lot more ugh, I don't even know how to put it. I don't want to say headaches. There's just more to deal with. And that's natural based, like you said, on the age of the building, different tenant base. So there's a lot more considerations and probably a lot more work that needs to go into it. A lot more attention is what I'll say.
Agreed. And so that is something again for the passive investor to think about is that C class is really great when you have a sponsor that is ready to dig in and do some great work on that building and that wants to have that big value add. So it can be an excellent play for sure. It's just that maybe a B class for myself, it might be less heavy lifting. It all depends, but I know that with the C classes that we have, that we've put on all new roofs, all new hardy plank, they typically can be a big job and constantly here in Texas, the galvanized pipes for plumbing, it's almost like a weekly thing that we get to dig up and replace, dig up and replace, which is again, it's fine. It's understanding what your business model is and what you want it to be. So from the syndicator side, I'm going to move a little bit to the B so I don't have as much as that.
Yeah. And I think from the passive investor side, you're right. They could look at it in terms of what are their investing goals, right?
Correct.
Because it runs a spectrum too. It's similar to stocks and stuff, but with the C class, it's maybe riskier, but also higher returns. And then you go to the other end of that spectrum on A class. Maybe the returns aren't as good, but it's safer. And what they can do also is diversify, right? So for myself, I'm usually on the active side in like B minus, maybe C, high C's. But then in my passive investments, I may have it in an A class because I'll just, okay, let my money work for me, but I don't want it to be dangerous either. Just let it keep growing. So that's another way of diversifying by going into not just different asset classes, but different asset types.
Exactly. Yes. Within the same asset, within the same multifamily. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think we do need to move on to the turbo round now. So I'm going to ask you three questions in quick succession, and all I ask for is an honest answer. All right. The first question: what is one red flag every investor should look out for?
Okay, as a limited partner and you're looking at the offering that a syndicator is giving you, location, location, location. You can change the paint. You can wipe out all the tenants, put in all new ones, and make it a beautiful little place. It's an oasis. But if it's in a bad neighborhood, you cannot change that bad neighborhood. So if you're a limited partner, be very careful and only invest in relatively good areas that you know about and make sure that you do the research yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure, anyone is going to have a pretty slide deck showing all the great things about it. But you need to take your own time to go ahead and verify it, especially if you're putting a considerable amount of money in. It's worth taking that time to do the research, like you said. And it doesn't matter how pretty you make it. But like you said, if it's in a bad neighborhood or even just a neighborhood that's not going to maintain growth, right? That's something I look out for. I'll never go into what we call tertiary markets, which is basically like the boonies, because the population isn't growing and population is renters. So I just want to know that I'm always going to have people, renting out those units. So I stick to primary and like secondary markets, smaller cities, but ones that always have a constant flow of people coming in.
That's wise advice.
All right. Next question. What is a myth about this business that you would like to set straight?
Yes, Tim, I also do coaching for another large syndication group. And what I find my students asking me the most is, should I invest in a small deal because I'll get less returns? That's not true. Okay. One of my favorite prior LPs, so limited partner passive investments, was in a 38 unit. And that 38 unit almost tripled my money. So it doesn't matter if you're an LP. It doesn't matter if it's a 30 unit or a 300 unit. You're still going to get the same projected returns that the sponsor believes that they can make. So that's a myth. Some people think smaller means less, and it's not true.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I've never heard that. It's an interesting question. There's definitely considerations from the active investor side, but yeah, from the passive investor side, I wouldn't care whether it's a 20 unit or a 200 unit. Like you said, if you're showing me what these projections are, then I'm not going to just take you at your word. I'll dig into it. But you're right. It doesn't really matter the size of the property from the passive investor's perspective.
Correct.
All right. The final question. What does success look like to you?
A beach house. That's what it looks like. But success for me is knowing, first of all, and then overcoming my limited beliefs. Because the limited beliefs get different as we grow. And so always actively reflecting upon myself and what might be holding me back, and then being able to overcome that makes me feel amazing to face any of those fears, aka limitations, and overcoming them. That's success to me.
Yeah, that's so awesome because you talk about overcoming your limiting beliefs. And what I think of is growth. Every time you're able to climb over one of those limiting beliefs, you're growing as a person. And I think that's what I imagine most of us want.
It's self-actualization. The psychologist in me thinks of Maslow's pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid is food and shelter, and at the top of the pyramid is, again, that self-actualization, learning who you are, what limits you have, what strengths you have, and if you can know yourself and better yourself, that is what living is all about, and that's success each time I can overcome myself.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Rebecca, this has been awesome. Please tell our guests how they can get a hold of you and if you have anything else that you would like to share with them.
Oh, yes, terrific. You can find us at www.starboardequity, starboard like the starboard side of a ship. And there you can find my how to close the gap between you and your dream retirement. Because we would love to share with you how you can get what you would like to have in your retirement life, that passive income, and join the Starboard Investor Club because you can find out what we're doing, how we're doing it, and see what this syndication stuff is all about through our blogs.
Awesome. We'll definitely have all that information in the show notes. I appreciate you coming on, Rebecca, and I really look forward to continuing to see you do big things on your journey to multifamily millions.
Likewise, thank you.